Surprise. Anyways, hello everybody, this is Kirusho here, and as you can clearly tell, I actually am posting another video. I actually do have the day off, and I've just been a bit busy. Anyways, let us continue. When we last left off, we had a bit of a problem. Deku, he just got done talking to Mei Hatsume in the support department, and talking about his hero suit. The design and, well, things that he wants to change, since it was completely destroyed. Now, he also did run into Katsuki, who did get her hero gear modified, and an upgrade, as you can say. So, let's start there. Now, everyone, they are at UA, as before things start, there is a bit of a question someone poses to Deku in the guys' locker room. Exactly what's up with him and those two girls? To which would confuse Deku, asking what Kaminari means. Him just saying that it's a bit obvious, dude. You got those two girls always hanging around you, so do you mind answering a question? Are you guys sort of... To which Deku would just say no. He knows where he's going with that, but they're all just friends. Apparently there's been something going on between those two, and I'm not sure what it is, but I'm childhood friends with one of them, and I ran into the other a couple months ago, helping her train and actually get better with her quirk. Deku explaining everything to him, as he slips over his shirt and they would all walk out. As Deku would walk up to the podium, people do actually see Deku somewhat limping, along with the burn mark across his face and his left hand. It is wrapped in bandages. So exactly what happened to this kid? Deku's somewhat taking the mic and actually pulling it close to him, as he actually does grab onto his ribs for a second, saying, "Hello everyone." Now, as you can see, I'm, well, not at 100%. This is actually something that happened during the USJ. Now, I understand quite a lot of people are concerned and, well, pose ideas about what happened that day. But please do understand. If it wasn't for Aizawa and more of the pros, then that day would have gone very differently. Me and some of the other students tried holding it off. Luckily, we were able to do so. In the process, I pushed myself further than I've ever been able to push myself with my quirk. I've discovered new limits and more power to myself, which is good. I've never seen those limits be pushed that far in one single day than I have in my entire lifetime. This place truly helps you control your quirk and train it properly. This place is... As Deku would just turn, not sure what to say, deciding that he has it. As he would turn, saying that this place brings out the hero in everyone. Now, I know I may not win today. I'm not counting on myself to win. I'm at least participating. So, everyone, I hope you do your best. Deku setting the mic down, as he limps off stage. Everyone a bit more encouraged. Now, President Mike would say that it is time for them to begin. The boy's speech was actually quite an encouraging one. It seems like everyone else is fired up. As Deku, he would make his way over to everyone else. Oh, he's uploading. Neat. Anyways, he would make his way over to everyone else. And he would be right in between Todoroki and Bakugo, these two staring at him. Deku would say that if they're ready, then they need to do this seriously. But you guys do understand that one of us has the best chance of winning. We've been through more training than they probably have been in a long time. You guys are aware of that, right? Ida somewhat would hear this, looking at Deku, thinking that he's really in no condition to be here, so he's gonna at least prove him wrong. As President Mike would say begin, everyone immediately rushing outwards, as Todoroki sends a ginormous wave of ice up behind her. This wall is thicker and heavier, so it will not be something easily that you can break through. Deku, he's actually stuck and frozen in the ice, as he turns on his quirk, immediately melting through as he would be able to bust his left arm outwards. Todoroki taking off. She's using a pillar of ice, or at least sliding around very fast. Deku actually seeing her move, as you have him turning on full cowling, him jumping off his leg with 13 to 15%. Racing forwards, he begins to start to catch up to her, as he hears an explosion. He would look behind him to see that the wall, or at least the top of the wall, is busted, and see Katsuki with her hero gloves and her hero boots. So that's why she needed them. She was going to use them here. Clever. As she comes flying in, she is directly behind them. Deku can see the fire, or at least the jets, coming out of her, shoes, along with the ones in her hands. She's clearly gotten better at that. He's guessing that those make it a bit more direct. So, if he's right, then they're in the direct center of her shoe. Good. Now, everyone else would have eventually gotten through the ice. Ida immediately starting to run outwards, as Jiro, Momo, Kirishima, and quite a lot of other Class 1A students begin running in their direction. Everyone getting a bit more competitive. Momo actually does start creating, some weird gadgets, if you can say that. She creates some roller skates, or at least something, and begins to basically make skis. Basically so she can stab into the ground and at least move forward. Or at least I want to say she'd do something funny, like create a rope that she can wrap around one of Ida's arms, as she basically gets dragged behind him. Actually, yeah, let's say she does that. Ida would have eventually gotten the rope off his arm, but she's already carrying that momentum. Now, Ida is catching up to these three quite fast, as Ida would begin trying to get across the, pits. Deku would have been able to fly over them, Todoroki would be able to make a bridge, and Baku would be able to fly over them too. Momo, however, she's in a bit of a situation. Whenever she actually does go to make a pole to vault over, it would actually snap whenever she gets up in the air, as she would be falling halfway over. Deku would have been able to turn around and see this, immediately using his fire to push back, as he begins to somewhat try flicking his fingers. He begins to move backwards as he would have been able to get Momo, grabbing her by her hand, and at least shooting fire out of his leg, at 15% of one for all. That would have ripped apart his shoe, and sent him flying forwards, him crashing into the ground. On the other side, Momo would have thanked him really quick and gotten up, saying that she's still not going to lose to him, taking off running. Todoroki and Katsuki seeing that, thinking that they might have more rivals, right? No, it doesn't seem like they're interested in him. Okay. These two continue to run, Deku getting back up and turning himself up to 25% this time, as he takes off running. Ida, he would have won first place, along with Katsuki and Momo, or Katsuki, Momo, and Todoroki somewhat tying for third. Deku being able to at least get past these two, as they would be fighting in the landmine area. That was not good already. Now, with that, they were all told that they need to pick teams. Ida getting the 10 million points. Him realizing that that actually is a bad thing. No one wants to be on his team. So exactly what's going to happen now? Everyone beginning to pair up. As Deku, he is quite much surrounded by people. Everyone wants to pair up with him, seeing as his quirk is strong and he's going to be very, very successful as a hero. As Kirishima asks exactly what does he want to do. Besides, if you're going to be using your fire or your strength, then you're going to need a strong front horse, right? Alright, man. Kirishima holding out his arm. Deku basically giving him a fist bump. He needs to pick a couple more people, so this is going to be a bit tricky. Eventually, he would have picked two more. Let's say Mei because she was talking about the jetpack and, well, she's designing his hero gear, so he at least wants to see if this thing could work. Or at least be used as a booster. Now, Mei is on his team. Todoroki and Katsuki, they'd be on their own teams. Along with Deku somewhat trying to convince someone to be on his team, but that's not going to work. He's trying to convince Tokoyami, but he's saying that with Deku's quirk, Dark Shadow may not be reliable. So, he's a bit sorry on that. Trying to actually pair up with his Class 1B counterpart. Now, if you guys don't know his quirk, his Class 1B counterpart can basically hide in the shadows or jump into them. It's actually a really cool quirk. Anyways, let's see, the next person I could see being on his team could be Jiro, actually. Yeah, that balances out. Anyways, they would be getting ready, as they are facing off against anyone else. Everyone is heading for Ida's team. Him trying to at least move his teammates around. On his team you have Uraka, so she can make things zero gravity. Zero, so you can wrap people up together and keep them all together. And actually Dark Shadow, for a strong defense. Now, that is actually a really good pairing. And him facing off against, well, yikes, Bakugo, Deku, and Todoroki. That team would not last very long. Eventually, someone would grab the 10 million points. Let's say Katsuki. She's more of an offensive person. She would have jumped forward and used her glove to try and get in close. Eventually getting close up to Tokoyami, who thinks that she can only throw explosions out of her hands and her feet, thinking that if he grabs her out of midair, he has her. Now, one thing he didn't predict was him having her wrist up in the air, as an explosion would go out of her arms, weakening Dark Shadow quite a bit. Her being able to sock him across the face and rip the 10 million points off of his neck, as she would kick off a Dark Shadow and basically fly away. Her team is going to win. Todoroki trying to send a blast of fire directly at, well, Katsuki. This is somewhat shocking her. She's using her fire now? As she just jumps up into the air. She's using her ice to try and make a pathway upwards. People watching as these two are having aerial combat. Katsuki is using her boots to stay airborne and at least somewhat kick around. Basically, she's able to kick upwards and make herself fly up into the air a certain direction, until she would eventually lose momentum. Basically, like if you were playing... Basically, if you were stepping on a hot sand and how you'd be jumping upwards in the air. It looks somewhat like that. Now, Katsuki, she has the headband in her hand, somewhat trying to at least shift it around. Being able to actually kick off of it and actually get onto Todoroki's ice, her immediately wrapping it around her arm, getting ready to fight. As Todoroki would have turned, blasting fire in that direction, and making a new pathway of ice. People are in shock. These two are really duking it out just for 10 million. It's impressive. As Deku would come flying in. He would have come in, smashing onto the pathway that those two have created, making it uneven. They've completely forgotten about him. They've been so focused on each other that they haven't even thought about what his team is doing. As that happens, Deku, he would have ran forward, looking directly at these two, as he turns on Mage's jetpack, and steps off his leg, flying forward at incredible speeds, grabbing Katsuki and being able to actually pull at their band. He would have torn it directly off of her arm, as she would be in shock, a bit confused at what he just did. She would turn and use her hands to create a giant explosion, somewhat sending Deku flying and uneven, as he's trying to get his bearings in the air. Until... let's see. Ochako, she would have been thrown forward. She's thrown... Now, as Ochako basically taps onto him, she would have stopped his descent. Her actually trying to grab at the headband, as Deku's trying to get away from her. Eventually these two would have it in their hands, and she would have been able to just tap release, Deku beginning to fall to the ground, as she would just tap on herself once again, being able to actually slow her descent. Aizawa and President Mike would announce that time is up as Deku smashes into the ground. A bit annoyed, as he basically flips over and starts yelling, "Damn it, damn it, damn it." While he's been basically getting everyone else's attention and getting their focus, his team has been collecting headbands, so they are still in the running, as they are getting ready for the combat portion. Now, the combat portion would begin, as these are the teams that are facing off against each other. You have teams. These are the people facing off against each other. Since we don't have Aiyama in this what if, he is being replaced by Todoroki. Or actually, no. Let's not do that. Hang on, let me figure this out. I meant to pause there, but I hit stop. Anyways. Now, Kendo will be replacing Todoroki on this side, while Todoroki will be in Aiyama's place that he was in canon. Now, let's begin. Deku versus Shinsho. Shinsho is totally screwed. He is freaking out. Quite a lot of people in 1B, especially Monoma, are a bit confused. That guy scored the highest in the entrance exam, but he's injured, so he has a chance. Why is he freaking out? Monoma stepping into the ring. Shinsho stepping into the ring, as he somewhat brings his hands up, and gets ready. He's somewhat thinking that if he does have to fight, then that works. He already knows my quirk, so this is going to be tricky. Deku saying one thing. You don't have to fight me. Before Shinsho could open his mouth, Deku says, "Shut up. Listen, I know your quirk. You know about that already. So listen to me. If I just run forward and take you out, I'm physically stronger. My quirk is, well, physical. You don't have to initiate a conversation. You can beat me if you just interrupt me. But you're not. That's respectful. I get it." People around actually hearing Deku. The kid's choosing not to interrupt, so that's at least polite? Question mark? Deku's saying that he can just walk out of the ring. You don't have to fight me physically. In fact, how about this? I won't use a physical advantage. Come at me. Shinsho somewhat smirking. thinking that at least works. As he would run forward, beginning to somewhat scream, thinking that he's never really tried throwing a punch. He usually thought he can just end conflict with, well, his quirk. Running forward as he tries to actually punch at Deku. Deku just stepping backwards and dodging his punch, as he throws his leg upwards, kicking him in the ribs. Shinsho taking this as he does try and swing his left arm outwards. Someone actually hitting Deku in the face. Deku tried backing up, but he did at least get him by the bridge of his nose, being able to at least move that part. So, he is slowing down. Eventually, the fight would end. Deku basically throwing a punch and knocking Shinsho into the ring. Rinse and repeat. Eventually, Shinsho would have just been, well, told that he should just walk out of the ring. Him being annoyed, yet determined. Eventually, Deku would have to knock him out with a punch, and the fight would continue. Or the fight would end there. Now, Kendo versus Sero. He's actually saying that it's kind of unique that he gets to fight someone. Well, at least a hottie. Kendo getting annoyed. Her basically doing one thing, running forward as Sero tries to actually use his tape. He would find that just trying to throw tape outwards with a giant fist was a bad idea. Her immediately just enlarging her hand to block it, running through as he does try and swing his arm around. The giant hand weighs too much. Her basically stringing her hand down and getting close enough. Being able to actually just step onto the ring, rip off the tape, and someone just kick off her shoe, throwing her hand outwards and enlarging it, punching him massively out of the ring, as he gets sent flying into a wall. People somewhat cheering. That was impressive. Now, that is where she would walk over and go back to picking up her shoe, as the next match will be Ibarra versus Kaminari. Now, this match will be, well, the same. She would basically tell him that his quirk is a bit, well, odd, don't you think? She's seen him use it a lot, but don't you think you should turn it down? Him basically saying, why should he? He always hits his target. As President Mike would yell, go. Him immediately trying to throw 1 million volts. Ibarra creating a wall, and vines coming out of the ring, getting him wrapped up. Anyways, now the next match is Ida versus May. May somewhat has tried messing or at least tinkering around with gear that she's used for Midoriya, Katsuki, and quite a lot of other people. She actually has gotten, well, samples, or at least a vial of Katsuki's sweat, to see exactly what kind of, well, metal or anything she needs to use to help it be a bit more effective, since certain chemicals can react different ways to certain metals she uses. Now, she only has one shot at this, so she's gonna have to make it count. Her actually wearing the thing on her palm. Ida not really paying attention to that. He wants to just run forward and try and get her out. But she did give him this cool thing, or cool device. So that's at least useful. Ida being made into a walking advertisement, as she would have told him that he can take that off now. Ida getting annoyed, as he would have ran forward, trying to actually push her out of the ring. She would have bent down though, Ida being confused, as he feels the ring somewhat shake, as a large explosion goes off. Him basically getting sent flying over May, as she would stand back up saying that this baby, however, it's a bit of a special thing I designed. Anyways, so this is basically something I have for people with sweat-based quirks, allowing you to use them more effectively. Todoroki somewhat picking up on that, Katsuki being a bit annoyed. With her hands in her on her head, somewhat freaking out. Her little secret against Todoroki has just been revealed. Todoroki's a bit annoyed. Now, the next match, Todoroki versus Mina. Mina would have immediately shot out ice, or not Mina, Todoroki would have immediately shot out ice and got Mina somewhat somewhat immobilized, as Mina would just try melting through it. As eventually it would be a fight between acid and fire. These two basically spraying both at each other. Until Todoroki would have done something that Mina didn't really predict or think about. Switching off. As Todoroki, she just stomps her leg downwards and someone just tries jumping out of the way. She would be able to move to the right as the acid would go flying directly past her and droop to the ground. Now, as soon as that happened, she would have stepped down with her right leg and thrown it directly outwards, smashing another giant wave of ice directly up at Mina. Mina actually having to forfeit. The next match being Momo versus Tokoyami. The match going like canon. Tokoyami actually being able to win. As the other match, Tetsu versus Kirishima, I want to say that would go differently too. Kirishima, he probably would have gotten a bit more accustomed to, not accustomed, he would have been used to jump off of for Deku. Deku basically using him to leap off of during the Cavalry battle. I'm not sure exactly how fast you can train a Quirk, but let's say he does have a bit more of a buff against that. So he would have actually been able to win in this match. Now with arm wrestling, but being able to actually stay standing. Now, with that, the next match, Katsuki versus Ochako. Ochako is a bit more nervous. Katsuki, yeah, she's, well, intense. And she doesn't really seem to like her very much. So that's a bit odd. Now, the match would have begun. Katsuki, she is not actually wearing her gloves for this one, which would surprise Ochako, and quite a lot of the people in the stands. Why'd she take it off for this match specifically? Does she think that she can just beat her easily? People somewhat hearing about quirks, and seeing as Ochako keeps having to rapidly tap things down, while Katsuki, she just keeps throwing around explosions left and right. Not really caring, or it seems that she doesn't care. Now, everyone would then be realizing those things made her explosions bigger, so she's just doing that because she doesn't want to hurt this girl or her friend. Eventually, her winning. As we have the next match, Deku versus Kendo. Deku, he is actually a bit more intrigued by Kendo's quirk, thinking that this will be a very, very cool matchup. As it would begin, Deku getting ready. He has his hands up and waiting for One For All to, well, give him some power. As he brings himself up to 35%, thinking that if she can knock out a person, then he will need this extra boost. As the two would begin to fight, Deku being able to throw a fist against this giant one she makes. Kendo basically trying to keep her ground. She uses her other hand to put it behind her, basically as a counterweight. If Deku can send her flying with one punch, she doesn't want to, well, go flying. She wants her to be anchored to the ring. So anytime she does need to switch off, she would enlarge her other hand, or at least shrink her hands down for a second and switch off. For a punch. Eventually, Deku doing one thing that puts a bit more strain on his body. He would have tried to use his fire quirk, somewhat feeling a couple muscles in his arms tense up, and his ribcage somewhat feel weird. he thinks he might have just popped one of his ribs out of place again. He wasn't done healing, so this was a bit tricky, as he would move backwards into the ring and somewhat start messing with his ribs. People watching that, thinking that the boys put too much strain on his body. He did say he may not win, but he's at least made it this far. People beginning to cheer Deku on, as Deku somewhat smiles, and gets ready. He would rush forward at 40% this time, actually being able to throw a punch outwards and smash this giant hand. As it somewhat goes flying backwards, the other hand basically stuck to the ring, as it somewhat just moves upwards. Deku running forward and grabbing this hand and just throwing it up into the air. Kendo is basically weightless at this point, Deku being able to kick her in the stomach and send her flying out of the ring. Now, that match happens, and then we will have Ibarra versus Mei. Mei forfeits. Now, we have Tokoyami versus Todoroki. Todoroki would have been able to use her, fire to get Tokoyami out, shrinking Dark Shadow to the point where it's basically useless. Her being able to actually run over and immediately just clock him across the face, and throw him out of the ring. Now, Bakugo or Kitsuki versus Kaminari. Kirishima, Jesus, I cannot talk today. Now, Bakugo would have been ready, saying that her quirk's impressive, but he's not going to lose to her. Shut up. No, seriously, come on. You got explosions. You're complete offense and I'm complete defense. Well, you got a point there, but you're forgetting one thing. Her rushing forwards as she heard go, with a loud explosion, saying that she is pure offense. That might be true, yes, but as she would have sent a kick directly into Kirishima, and blast him with her feet, saying that she's also defensive. Immediately bringing her hand downwards, smashing it downwards into his face. Him trying to counter with his own punch. Her throwing another explosion. Eventually, she would have worn down his defense to the point where he can barely harden his quirk. He's gone through quite a lot of fighting, and her explosions are powerful. Him barely being able to keep his, ground. Her just throwing explosions directly at his arms. He is still trying to defend, as eventually she would have done one thing, cocking her arms backwards, both of them, and smashing them forwards with as much force as possible. Creating the explosion Cannon Bakugo used against Ochako, directly at Kirishima, as he basically gets sent flying into a wall, smashing into it as he's hardened, and being eliminated. Now then, Deku versus, Ibarra. This fight would go differently. Deku needs to chill on using his quirk for a second, or at least his fire. He thinks that One For All should at least be useful against this, so where do we begin? Now, while he's fighting with Ibarra, let's go over to the waiting rooms, or at least nearby. We have Todoroki and Katsuki. These two are somewhat arguing about how they're going to win and when they're going to do it. As Todoroki, she's a bit annoyed, saying that you have to use a support item. So is that how you're going to win? Is that how you're going to trick me? Don't be ridiculous. Besides, you're finally using your other side. I thought you were all about that whole I'm not like my father. As eventually, it would be announced that Deku has won the match. Them looking at the cameras to see that his body is completely engulfed in his fire. Throughout the fight, he tried to let his quirk cremation cool down a bit. However, anytime he got caught into Ibarra's vines, he could break through them. Eventually it got to the point where she covered him with enough for him to actually use cremation, turning off one for all and switching over to this one, as he would let out a large burst of fire breaking through it, sending Ibara to the edge of the ring. Using one for all, he would have then just thrown out a large punch, 25%, the shockwave making her bring her hands up to try and defend herself. She tries to create a wall behind her of vines, but as soon as that starts to create, she would have tripped over it not being high enough and getting sent flying into the wall with the force of the shockwave. As it is announced that Izuku Midoriya will be in the finals. As these two would immediately just look at each other. Shit. They didn't think about this. Wait, so if one of us wins, then we're facing the guy in the final. Wait, then what happens if he wins? I don't know, actually. One of us was only supposed to win, right? We haven't won in any categories. Ida won the race and Deku won the other thing. So if he wins here, exactly how is this going to happen? The two basically freaking out, as it is announced that their match will begin. Them immediately having a, personality shift. Them both walking out. Katsuki is ready. She has her gloves on once again. As Todoroki, you can see her just messing with her hands, basically shaking off whatever she needs to. Endeavor getting ready. He's held his tongue for long enough. So, if the finale is anything like he thinks it will be, then Shota must win. Now, that is where things would begin. President Mike would announce go. Todoroki doing something Bakugo would have been pissed off at, sending a large burst of fire directly at her. As eventually, Bakugo would do one thing. She would shoot directly upwards, with both of her hands and her legs, as she gets sent flying directly up into the air. She goes high enough to be halfway above the stadium, so roughly 200 to 300 feet. Todoroki being annoyed. Her getting ready to fire ice up into the air, thinking that she's a sitting duck. She has this in the back. Now, as she thinks that she would watch as Katsuki does one thing with her gloves. She flips something around. And she actually does it take off two things on these gauntlets that are on her palm, holding them outwards and beginning to actually start shooting off her quirk. As she's firing AP shots directly out of her palm this time. She's firing them off to a point where Todoroki, she cannot fire ice. Whenever she does so, it keeps getting shredded apart by these attacks. People being in shock. Along with Katsuki actually being able to hold a stream of fire directly under her feet for a second. Able to hold her up and actually do this. As she would have been able to turn her hands backwards and put these things back on. It's actually able to stick to her thumb whenever she does need to, because of a magnet. So she can hold it there, and whenever she needs to, she can snap it back into place and the magnet will unelectrify. Now, she would go blasting in, directly being able to get close enough and sock into Todoroki, socking her across the face. Todoroki throwing up her left hand, trying to spark Katsuki with fire. Katsuki being able to dodge, and actually duck underneath it. As Todoroki brought up her left leg, trying to kick into her. These two fighting for dominance. As she keeps trying to either hit her with fire or hit her with ice. Either one is not working. Now, eventually we get to the point where Katsuki, she does need to back off. One of her arms has gotten frozen, or at least too cold, to produce sweat. So she cannot use her hand. She does have some sweat left in her gauntlet. Or at least a little thing in her hand. This will at least work. Her getting ready. She keeps just throwing around her left arm and getting ready, as Todoroki just stands there, saying that she's not going to win. You know I'll win our little bet. Bet? Quite a lot of people saying. This would catch Deku's attention. Exactly what are they betting? And if that's the case, does this have something to do with... Deku's staying silent for a minute, as he watches these two run forward to each other with both their quirks on. These two would get to a grapple, as the fire is barely able to scorch and touch her, her hand and get across it. It is heating up her arm, but she's not producing explosions, so that it will at least provide to be something useful. Katsuki's saying one thing: you really don't know how to control a quirk properly. Todoroki being a bit confused. A large explosion coming from Katsuki's stomach, hitting Todoroki in hers, somewhat knocking her backwards and sending her onto her knees, as she's holding her gut. Katsuki kicking her across the face, sending Todoroki flying, her getting back up. Her shirt is torn and ripped, but that's not going to stop her, as she would run forward once again. She's just trying to get close enough to, Todoroki, knowing that if this works, then it might at least keep her in the ring. Todoroki trying to blast fire directly at Katsuki, her smashing her hands downwards and sending a piece of the ring upwards, the fire going around her. She begins to run up this piece as she jumps over it, and over Todoroki's fire. Todoroki, she begins to try and redirect herself upwards, Katsuki having her hand waved outwards, and her feet pointed directly at Momo, pointed directly at Todoroki, as Todoroki makes a spark. Bakugo exploding. The entire explosion engulfs most of the ring, as someone gets sent flying out. Now, eventually the smoke would clear, and they would find the two. They find Katsuki, nearby the top of the stadium, embedded in one of the walls, with a heavy concussion. Them being able to find Shoto, she's in the ring. Half of her body is covered in ice, and somewhat held down. Now, she's declared the winner of that match. Katsuki, she would pass out, barely able to stay conscious. Deku watching as they wheel her into Recovery Girl's office. Him a bit more concerned, as it is announced that the finals will be Deku or Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki. This matchup will be something everyone is waiting for. So let us begin. Now, the match will begin. Todoroki, she's a bit happy. She just won, right? She did it. Then, why doesn't this feel right? As she looks at Midoriya, seeing his face, he looks concerned, or at least not happy. As President Mike would say go, somewhat snapping her out of this, thinking that she needs to fight him now. Okay. As Deku would just look at her, saying exactly what was your guys' bet. What? Your bet. You two keep talking and, it's good and all, but sometimes I feel like you're doing it without me knowing. Or, at least not. You keep making deals about me, don't you? Them all being a bit more confused. Deku, he would somewhat go on, but not in detail, saying that he's tired of being left out. If they would just want to talk about something, just talk about it. As she would just somewhat throw ice in his direction, saying that they can after the match. Deku holding out his left arm, and sparking it with fire, as the ice immediately melts. As Deku gets ready, he just starts to walk forward, his body engulfed in fire, His uniform, it is fireproof, so he doesn't have to worry about destroying it. Todoroki, she's a bit more confused, realizing exactly one problem. Deku's fire cannot be countered. Anytime she starts to throw ice at him or does anything of the sort, Deku's fire burns hotter. So, this is going to have to be a firefight, as she lights up her left side as much as possible. Deku watching this happen. As he gets ready, she would begin to blast fire directly at him, as Deku just stands there with his arms upwards, and starts to turn on One for All. As he does so, he begins to just start burning up brighter, as you can see a blue flame within a wave of red fire or orange fire. Deku beginning to walk through, somewhat with a bit more resistance, turning on One for All to 20%. His fire getting intensely hot. He's able to manage this, however. So, he's able to walk forward, being able to get up close enough to grab Todoroki by her hand, and he would begin to bend it, as he socks her into the gut, and just grabs her and smashes her down into the ring, asking her exactly what is she thinking, as she turns her hand and throws it upwards onto Deku's back, covering him and coating him with ice. The two getting into a bit of a brawl, and fighting. She knows it's her quirk, but exactly what is he concerned? Being able to get more distance, she just keeps firing ice and, well, fire at Deku. Finding neither one to be working. Why isn't this working? After all she's been through. As she would somewhat break down for a second. Tears somewhat streaming across her face. Deku just looking at this. He's never seen her cry. And she just starts to scream, "Damn it." As she would just say that she cannot win against him. Deku's somewhat feeling a bit, well, bad. Thinking that she could, easily, but he's still holding back, right? As he looks down at his hand. He then hears Nana Shimura. "You are holding back. We're forcing you to hold back." What? Kid, what percent do you think you're at right now? 35, right? No. We're limiting you to 20. What? Why? Because this is how we're gonna train you. So, we're gonna train you a weird way, but this will work. Trust us. You may not have access to more of your power, but you do have access to one thing. As Deku's just holding up his arm, asking what is that? Looking down at it to see something black on his arm. This is different, as it would begin to somewhat shoot out and begin to freak out. Deku actually watching this happen, as he turns on his fire. Todoroki looking up to see this, thinking that that's not good. She throws at her side and begins to actually shoot fire directly at this. Or, no, she shoots ice at it, and thinks that she can hold it off. As this begins to stab into the ice and actually begin to make its way upwards, and throughout it. As Deku's fire begins to go through it, somewhat burning through her ice, and tearing it apart. Deku trying to get control of this as he falls onto the ring, holding his arm, and actually grabbing at these, well, wires as they seem, trying to pull on them. People looking at this. As Deku just freaks out. He doesn't have control. What is going on? Now, as soon as that happens, Todoroki, she would run forward, dodging out of the way and getting away from Deku's, well, black whip, or whatever this thing is. Trying to run forward at him. She thinks if she can just attack him, then she'll do fine. As she runs forward and knees him in the face, Deku actually standing up, as she gets hit by something and actually wrapped around in these chains. They begin to burn her, as she tries to get away. She then kicks her arms upwards, or at least kicks her legs upwards, and hits Deku. Deku pulling backwards on his arm. As Todoroki, she gets sent flying backwards and smashing into the ice, burning through it. As Deku finally is able to, get control of this thing, by someone just ripping it out of his arm, or at least pulling it off. As he drops down to the ring exhausted. What is going on? Realizing that he's sweating a lot. Before he realizes exactly that that's not sweat. He's opened up some of his injuries. So this isn't good. As he looks across to see Todoroki just laying on the ring. Shit. One of us needs to get up. Him watching as she brings her hand upwards. And actually just try to stand up, or at least put down weight on her arm. Deku somewhat doing the same. Asking One for All for more power, or Nana Shimura, to let him go unrestrained, please. Her telling him no. He's too dangerous. She didn't think that he should have given him use of one Black Whip already, but apparently he wanted you to. Shit. That was too soon. Now, with that, Deku is actually able to put weight down in his arm, being able to actually bring his leg upwards, as he actually is able to stand up for a second. Him actually doing so and somewhat wobbling around. As present mic begins a countdown from 10. Todoroki barely being able to stand up, not even being able to stand. She's barely even able to stay on the ground, or even get on her feet. She's on her hands and knees, basically trying to stand. She would be able to do so at 9 before she just falls back onto the ring. It being declared that Izuku Midoriya has won the sports festival. Him running over to help Todoroki, asking her if she's fine. He would have picked her up and carried her to Recovery Girl's office. As later it would be announced that Izuku Midoriya is coming in second place. Yes, he won the, final act of the sports festival, but he still lost to Ida's team. Ida is actually winning first. However, one thing that is strange is that he was picking up phone calls before the award ceremony, so he was a bit more surprised and looked a bit more anxious to leave. He's not happy. Why isn't he happy? He just won. Now, as soon as All Might would shake his hand and they are allowed to leave, this is whenever he would have gotten directly out of there. Deku being told that he did good and fairly well. The control over his quirk is, astounding and new, especially with this new ability. Now, this is whenever he would turn to the third candidate, or at least third candidate. Why did I say candidates? Turn to the third place winner, Todoroki, saying that she has also done well. Your placings during the battles and during the Cavalry battle were fairly high. You should be proud that you made it this far. Some time would pass, and it would be announced to Deku that these two had a bit of a bet. Him hearing about it now. Last week they bet that whoever won the sports festival would, somewhat try asking Deku out and see what would happen. Deku's a bit annoyed, however, saying that if they wanted to ask him out, just to do it. But I have one question. How exactly is this going to work? I can't really just date both of you, can I? As these two somewhat just look at each other for a second. That would solve both of their problems. As they would basically grab Deku's hands, saying that that's it. That's the solution. Deku being a bit confused. Wait, what? The two basically looking at each other. Someone beginning to argue a bit more, saying that they can share him, which Deku's not sure what to say. Him basically just backing away and saying that that's not really the proper solution. These two continuing to argue. Deku trying to figure this out, as a lot of people can see him walk out of UA, with two girls on his arms, along with him having a very annoyed look on his face. Now, that is going to be where I leave this part off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.